Thank you for checking out the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell, and today I want to talk about consistency and the philosophy that how you do anything is how you do everything. Now, I put a lot of faith and stock into that philosophy because I learned early on that you face your bottles when you're pouring them, and if you look under my sink right now, you'll see that everything is very tidy and organized, and all the bottles are faced. It's not always like that. I'm human. Things happen, and whatever. Sometimes I'm excited about that level of organization, and sometimes I'm not. But when I'm at work, it's pretty much always very consistently, very, very organized. So here's a story about how I was hired to implement a draft system, and what went wrong, what went right, and what I eventually learned from it. So this is actually recent. Is working with a celebrity chef. The idea was that it's super fast casual pizza concept, and it was meant to be very systematized, or at least in my mind, it was meant to be very systematized so that we could have people that weren't necessarily beverage experts delivering a very high quality product in beverage. And to do that, the theory was that we would do it on draft. Now, if you've ever worked with draft systems or draft cocktails, then you know that that actually adds a lot of complexity, because you have to, especially if you're trying to carbonate drinks. So carbonating cocktails on draft at scale is actually pretty difficult to do. And that is exacerbated by the fact that you have maybe complex cocktails that require a bit of precision when you're pouring them into large batches. So things were moving really fast. It was a quick opening. There's a little bit of turnover in the staff, and nobody was really responsible for the beverage. So they hired me to come in and just kind of organize things and sort things out for this to happen. Now, I document everything. So as I move through. And so what I received, the input that I got on this one was, these are the recipes that we would like to be on draft. And I saw an individual recipe in ounces, and then I saw a scaled recipe in liters. And liters, which is, you could intuit, is you can also turn into milliliters. And there's a certain level of precision required to make this happen at scale, and especially when you're working with lower skilled workers. These were not bartenders. They're not people that were interested in being beverage professionals even. They just wanted to go do their jobs and go home. And so to get the ball rolling, just to get something that we could put up on the pin board and sell, I did it. I made the recipe as close as I could using measuring, but there was not a precise measurement. I was literally measuring into Cambros, so it was by the liter, and by fraction of the liter. And now I've been doing this for 20 years, so I can taste a batch and fix it incrementally, by quote unquote eyeballing it. And that is not a level of precision that is required to do something like this at scale. And so what you have to do is, I wanted to start selling that drink today, because we had all the ingredients and we were ready to go, from that standpoint. But from an operational standpoint, it was nowhere near ready. And so what I learned from this, so the problem was that I was in the kitchen fixing this batch, getting it ready to go, and I was seen pouring flavored sugar into a 5-gallon corny keg, and there was an objection, understandably, from the chef, saying that, hey, you're eyeballing that. And I was like, yeah, I am. I didn't want to defend myself. It's not really in this. It doesn't really. Getting into an argument into a kitchen. This was off hours, by the way. This wasn't during service, but getting into an argument with anybody, let alone your boss's boss, is counterintuitive and counterproductive. So I was just like, yep, that's right. And we all kind of just moved on. So I feel like my reputation got a bit of a ding that day, because it appeared that I was just kind of like willy-nilly doing stuff. But in my mind, it's kind of the equivalent of just adding a pinch of salt if you're cooking a dish, because I was literally making 600 servings of this drink, and adding 4 or 5 ounces of 50 bricks syrup is not gonna dramatically impact the way it behaves or tastes. So anyway, so I put it in there, sealed it up, wrapped it up, and that ended up being what the batch needed, and they were able to sell the drink later that day. Now, if from a tactical standpoint, from actually implementing this in your bar standpoint, what you do need to do is at for large batches like that, and for people that don't necessarily give a shit, you have to measure everything by weight. You have to do everything by weight, and that comes with its own challenges. So I use a little scale like this. It's like an OXO or something like that, but it has a limitation on how much weight you can put on it. And so not only do you have to get the right equipment so you can weigh something up to that has the capacity to weigh that much stuff, but you also have to standardize the brands, and also temperature is a factor. So it's like you have to put everything into you have to standardize every little thing, including like how things are stored, which brands you use, and how, and then you have to put all that into a document that is understandable by somebody who doesn't care, and then you still have to be able to fix it in case something's wrong, and then you have to treat the keg every day, temperature so especially when you're carbonating a keg, the CO2 first of all, you have to purge the oxygen out of there. Otherwise, the oxygen will oxidize the cocktail, and the juice in there will start to taste like it's old. So you have to get the air out of there, and then you have to put in CO2. There's a way that you put in the CO2 so that you're not mixing the CO2 with air. So you have to have only CO2 in there and zero oxygen, otherwise it's going to oxidize. And so when you put the CO2 in there, the CO2 is not going to mix into the solution until you shake it up. So somebody's got to come around and shake it every day, preferably more. And then that way the solution, the gas gets mixed in with a solution. And then once it goes through the draft line, assuming that there's no nucleation points in the draft line, there's no scuffs in the tubing or anything like that, then that's when comes out, and then the gas escapes, and that's what we see as carbonation. So all this stuff has to work perfectly every single time from people who don't care. And so the point of the story is that the level of precision and the level of explanation, being able to document that is not only a skill, but it's also an art, in my opinion. And that's where kind of my creativity comes in, is because like my thinking about this is that like we may be able to train this in a linear way in the beginning of a relationship with a new associate, somebody who's working with us. But there also has to be a reminder in context. And so what I ended up doing was I said, here's a QR code that leads to a web page that is in the keg room. Like it's in the keg room. So not only like do I want to laminate this SOP, and then also assign it to a dedicated batch kit that's just for this work. Like the chefs cannot use this to make pizza. It's only to make these 5-gallon batches of whatever. They were also doing Lambrusco. They also had another like a draft Negroni. But this one was like, so we have to have dedicated equipment. There has to be an SOP attached to the point of a decision where somebody's like, okay, this is out. What do I need to do now? And then also I put a QR code on this with a video walkthrough of me making the batch, so that somebody could have an understanding of kind of how the mechanics of that works. Now, if this level of granularity and precision is required, I mean, this is setting aside having a backup carbonating while you're dispensing the first one. Setting all that aside, this level of precision, put in the hands of somebody who doesn't necessarily care. And don't tell me about hiring people who care and people who don't care. People care about what they care about, and sometimes they can be excellent hospitality practitioners and just not give a shit about carbonating cocktails. And so what I'm getting at is that like if you can get past those elements, then then it's still important to provide the information that's required in context at the time of need. And I do that with web pages and just making little video demonstrations of walking through, because some people learn by reading, some people learn by looking at it, and other people learn by just doing it 1,000 times. But at the end of the day, with something that has that much specificity and that much, I mean, the stakes aren't that high. We're just talking about drinks here, really, honestly. But the drink could be simple, but the way that it's delivered could be extraordinarily complex. And then that level of complexity has to be met with documentation. And there has to be a level of tolerance for if that doesn't get executed exactly right. Because we're talking about science here. That's science. And then you also have to be able to fix it in case it gets fucked up. All right. That's the lesson that I learned. And I hope you enjoyed the story. My name is Jason Littrell. This has been the Hospitality Strategy Lab, and I will see you next time. Thank you.